Hari Shri Radha Vinod Bihari Ju ki jai. Shri Govinda Gopinath Maran Mohan Ju ki jai. Nitya Lila Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashtara Shata Shishimar Bhakti Vedanta Nārāyaṇa Gosvāmī Mahārāja Srila Gurudev ki jai. Nitya Lila Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashtara Shata Shishimar Bhakti Vedanta Vāman Gosvāmī Mahārāja ki jai. Nitya Lila Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashtara Shata Shishimar Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Śrīla Prabhupāda ki jai. Tadiya Shubha Tirobhav Titi ki jai. Titi Palankari Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Nitya Lila Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashtara Shata Shishimar Bhakti Vedanta Vamana Goswami Maharaj. Sorry, Śrīla Bhakti Pragyan Keshava Goswami Maharaj ki jai. Nitya Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashtara Shata Shishimar Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada ki jai. Swaparshad Śrīla Prabhupada ki jai. Nitya Pravishta Maha Bhagavat Śrīla Gorkshara Babaji Maharaj ki jai. Nitya Pravishta Śrīla Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur ki jai. Nitya Pravishta Vaishnava Sarvabhauma Śrīla Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj ki jai. Shri Rupa Anuga Gauriya Guru Varga ki jai. Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jeev Gopal Bhattadash Raghunath Sharda Goswami Prabhu ki jai. Shri Sarup Damodar Rai Ramanandari Shri Gaur Parshad Vrinda ki jai. Namachay Shri Haridas Thakur ki jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Shri Kshetra Mandal Gaura Mandal Braja Mandal Mathura Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Sarva Abhishta Bharata Giriraj Maharaj ki jai. Shri Radha Kunda Shama Kund ki jai. Shri Yamuna Devi Ganga Devi ki jai. Shri Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi ki jai. Shri Bhakti Devi ki jai. Shri Purnamasi Yogamaya ki jai. Shri Gopeshwar Mahadev ki jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai. Shri Kartik Vrat Niyam Seva ki jai. Urja Vrat ki jai. Urjeshwari Shri Vishwabhanu Nandini Shrimati Radha Thakurani ki jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Shri Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol Jai Śrīla Prabhupāda ki jai. Hare Krishna, Karkaraj ji, Dandavat Pranam. So, Hari Bol everybody. Recently, one of the sevaks in our who heads the Hindi publications, and he found an amazing article written by Śrīla Prabhupāda, which I searched, and Vajanti Mala Mataji searched. We searched all around and we couldn't find it published anywhere. So it seems like this is the first time since 1955, when Śrīla Prabhupāda wrote it in September. This is the first time. So I think that's 67 years, something like that. Yeah, 67 years since this has been published. And I just sent it out on the Raise of the Harmonist mailing list. I still need to prepare it for Pure Bhakti, and I'll post it on Facebook. But I just wanted to read it before it gets way too late. So yeah, it's very interesting. But yeah, you're probably, whoever is watching here now, you're probably I don't know, maybe the fourth, fifth, sixth, like people to hear it since that time, since 1955. Possibly. I'm not. So I'm just reading straight from my email. This is why I posted it out. And also, if you are not subscribed to the Raise of the Harmonist mailing list, we post here how many times? 3 times a month, sometimes 4 times a month. We do 2 postings for Śrīla Vāman Goswami Maharaj, where we publish new memories of Śrīla Vāman Goswami Maharaj. Sometimes we publish things that he wrote also. And then we publish an article by Śrīla Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada. And then we also post a new letter written by Śrīla Gurudev, or some article or something written by Śrīla Gurudev every month. So, Rays of the Harmonists, special online edition for the Disappearance Day of Śrīla Bhaktivedānta Prabhupāda, dedicated to Nitya Pravishtam Vishnupad Śrīmad Bhaktivedānta Keshav Gosvāmī Mahārāja, inspired by and under the guidance of Nitya Pravishtam Vishnupad Śrīmad Bhaktivedānta Nārāyaṇa Gosvāmī Mahārāja. Ethical Problems on Gopanna's Devotion by Abhay Charan Bhaktivedanta, Śrīmad Bhaktivedanta Swāmī Prabhupāda. There's an old picture of Śrīla Prabhupāda before he went to the West. Let's see, is this big enough for you? I just want to see one thing if I sent this in our group. Yeah, it went in our group. Okay. The following article by Śrīmad Bhaktivedanta Swāmī Prabhupāda about the famous Kancherla Gopanna, also known as Bhakta Ramadasu or Bhadrachala Ramadasu, a 17th century Vaiṣṇava devoted to Lord Rāmacandra, was recently found in the archives of Śrīmad Bhaktivedanta Nārāyaṇa Gosvāmī Mahārāja and the magazine Śrī Sajjana-toṣaṇi Patrikā, Volume 1, September 1955. To our knowledge, it has not previously been shared with the worldwide community of devotees. Śrīla Prabhupāda presents the article in two parts. 1. An excerpt from the article Bhadradri Ramdas by Sri N. Chandrashekhara Aiyar, published in the daily Hindustan Times, followed by Sri N. Chandrashekhara Aiyar's commentary on Gopanna's devotion. And 2. Śrīla Prabhupāda's penetrating commentary on both. To preserve the flavor of the original article, written 10 years before Śrīla Bhaktivedanta Swāmī Prabhupāda journeyed to Western shores, we have retained his spelling of certain Sanskrit words and have only lightly edited the article, including the newspaper excerpt for clarity. The shlokas within the article are written in Devanagari script, so herein we are presenting them in the standard way with diacritics. You can view a PDF of the original article here. And if you click there, it will open up the PDF. Aspiring to serve Sri Guru and the Vaishnavas, the rays of the harmonist team, Bhaktivedanta Publications. And if you want to see this is the original, this is where it was published, Śrī Sajjana-toṣaṇi Patrikā. Published September 1955, and editor-in-chief was Bhakti Saranga Gosvāmī Mahārāja. And this is the article. Ethical Problems on Gopanna's Devotion. See? Pretty neat, huh? I'll just show you. You can see the whole thing really quickly. See, that's the whole. It's kind of long. All right, so let's begin. An interesting story under the heading Bhadradri Ramdas has appeared in the Hindustan Times. Extracts from the story that are presented as follows will be read with interest by persons engaged in the transcendental loving service of God. And remember, we barely Vaijanti Mala Mataji, she very lightly edited it just so it made a little bit more sense, but hardly did anything. We even kept in all the wrong spellings and all that, like with the Sanskrit words and stuff. So, okay, so here, this is Śrīla Prabhupāda's quoting something that was published under the heading Bhadradri Ramdas in the Hindustan Times. So, there is a temple on the hill dedicated to Ram, Lakshman, and Sita. The images, the deities, and anything in square brackets is an insertion from us, the editors. The images, deities, have laid concealed in the earth for ages on this hill. In the course of time, a pious lady called Damaka, who was a devotee of Ram, had a dream in which she was told the exact whereabouts of the images and was asked to unearth them, install them, and offer them worship until the time came that a great Ram Bhakta would appear on the scene and give the images his attention. Damaka carried out the behest. Bhadrachalam, which was a Jagir under Mughal rule, became subject to Golconda Nawabs. It became subject to the Golconda Nawabs about the middle of the 17th century. So Bhadrachalam, that's a Jagir. It was a Jagir under Mughal rule, and a Jagir is land granted to an appointee of the state, and that person would become the Jagirdar, the landlord, with powers to govern and collect tax from the land's tenants. So it came under, Mughal rule, and it became subject to Golconda Nawabs. A Nawab is like the governors of the Mughal Empire. I mean, and Golconda is that's a Qutub Shahi dynasty that was Persian. Well, I'm just reading the footnote we put here. A Persianate Shia Islam dynasty that ruled the Sultanate of Golconda in southern India from 1518 till 1687. And I think this Gopanna, he passed away in 1688. Was it something like that? All right. So one of the Golconda rulers was a man called Abdullah, who had two Hindu ministers named Akanna and Madanna. They're Brahmin ministers. Their sister's son was called Gopanna. From the time of Gopanna's infancy, he was lost in the worship of Sri Ram and in repeating Sri Ram's name. In course of time and of course due to the court influence of his uncles, he was appointed the Tahsildar of Bhadrachalam. I think a Tahsildar is the same as a Jagirdar, but I'm not 100% sure. But anyways, Tahsildar is a tax collector. So he became the tax collector of Bhadrachalam. It is this Gopanna who subsequently became known as the great Ramdas of Bhadrachalam. Okay, so he has two names, Gopanna, and is also famous as Bhadrachala Ramdas. And also Bhakta Ramadasu. He had two famous names. The lesson to be drawn from the history of his life is a bit complicated. We have something of a riddle. In regard to ethical properties and standards of public virtues. In short, the story is this. Okay, so now we're going to start the story. Gopanna was prepared to do anything for his god. He wanted to renovate the temple in Bhadrachalam, bedecking the permanent images and propitiating those images with costly and dazzling jewels of precious stones, performing festivals galore, and, on every holy occasion, feeding the public without distinction of caste and creed to their heart's content. He utilized the revenue of the tehsil, the administrative area under his charge, for these purposes. And though the temple became prosperous and beautiful, the Nawab's treasury fell short of 6 lakhs of varahas, or gold mohurs. So 6 lakhs means that equals 600,000. So 600,000 gold mohurs. And a gold mohur is a gold coin of India that was introduced in the 16th century by various Mughal princes and later used by the British as the standard gold coin of India. 1 gold mohur was generally equivalent to 15 silver rupees. Wow, so that's a lot of gold. 600,000 gold coins. My God. So he used the 600 that he was short 600,000 gold coins of the tax money because he was using that in the service of these Thakurdjis of, what is it, Ram, Sita, and Lakshman? Yeah, Ram, Sita, Lakshman. Ram, Lakshman, and Sita. Okay. When the accounts were calculated, Gopanna was brought to Golconda as a prisoner and incarcerated. He was subjected to every kind of torture. Gopanna did not mind the torments inflicted on him, as sometimes they did not affect him very much. Nearly 12 years passed in this manner before actual orders were issued by the Nawab for his decapitation. Wow, he was tortured for 12 years, and then the Nawab ordered his decapitation. Whew. The Tanisha, and actually I looked up this word Tanisha everywhere and I couldn't find it anywhere, but I saw Tanasha, and I saw the same story where he was sleeping, and the same story that follows, and it was always his name was always mentioned as Tanasha. So I'm just going to say Tanasha throughout this article. Tanasha. So Tanasha, and that I'm pretty sure Tanasha is the Nawab who ordered his decapitation. I'm pretty sure. So Tanasha was sleeping with his queen in the harem when he had a dream. Two resplendent young men asked him to hasten to receive all the monies due from Gopanna and issue him a receipt so that he may be released forth. Tanasha was dazed at the sight of the young men, and when he asked them for the money, the two people poured the amount in front of him on the floor. He asked them who they were, and they said they belonged to the Surya Vangsha, or solar race, and were known as Ramoji, Śrī Rāmacandra, and Lakshmanoji, that's Lakshman, and were friends and adherents of Ramdas. They were friends and adherents of Ramdas, Gopanna. Tanasha could not restrain his surprise. He went to the prison house himself, accompanied by the young men, acknowledged receipt of the monies, and directed Gopanna's immediate release. Ramoji and Lakshmanaji disappeared, but Tanasha found himself in bed once again, and he woke up as if from a dream. The gold coins were there. Wow. He directed Gopanna to be brought to him, and when Gopanna appeared before him, he praised to the skies his good fortune and devotion to God. He then sent him back to Bhadrachalam as Tehsildar with 6 lakhs of varahas to be spent by him for the temple as he pleased. He also proclaims that from that day forth, the pious Tehsildar was to be known as Ramdas, or the devotee of Sri Ram. Pretty neat, huh? The Mughal ruler named him Ramdas, the devotee of Sri Ram. And what did he get in reward for? Well, I mean, he did get 13 years of torture and about to get his head decapitated, but he also got 6 lakhs of varahas, to spend. So now back to Śrīla Prabhupāda. The writer of the above narration, Sri N. Chandrashekhara Aiyar, has raised some ethical problems in regard to the above history. They are as follows. However, let me just check everything's running okay. Yeah, looks like it. However intense the devotion of Ramdas Gopanna to his Lord might have been, however pure and selfless his motives were, was it proper on his part to appropriate the public revenue in this manner and divert it to purposes for which it was never intended? So, in other words, can we use tax dollars on the Lord's service, which is meant for the public? It is not as though Ramdas was not warned about the impropriety. Some of his friends, according to the story, appear to have informed him, but he did not pay any heed. This makes the offense more serious. So he did it knowingly. The answer that may be attempted, but which is unconvincing, is that as it is the duty of the king to take care, maintain, protect, and renovate temples and tanks and objects of public utility within the limits of his state. So he was just renovating the temple, which is of public utility. It was up to the Tanasha to have done this himself, and therefore there was nothing wrong in the government representative like Ramdas undertaking this duty on his shoulders, in the performance of which the royal patron was silent. But was it not the duty of Ramdas to ask the king's permission to divert the funds? Why was Ramdas subjected to so much suffering and misery? The answer given in the complete story is that in his previous verse, he had taken hold of a parrot and caged it. In his subsequent birth, he had to pay retribution for that act of cruelty by undergoing imprisonment. That doesn't sound like such a bad thing, like such a heavy thing to do, to cage a parrot. Yikes. Anyways. Is it necessary, however, to go to a previous birth at all? Good or evil deeds done intensively and in large scale bear fruit immediately, and the results are not delayed till for future births. Was such colossal appropriation of state revenue for another purpose, however legitimate, not sufficient in itself to entail such punishment? 5 questions about the absence of mensuria do not arise in such matters. And mensuria, there's a footnote. Mensuria is Latin for guilty mind. It refers to the intention or knowledge of wrongdoing that constitutes part of a crime, as opposed to the action or conduct of the accused. It is classified variously of being 3, 4, 5, or more types. So, judging by the standard of public duty, the conduct of Ramdas was not justified. But in the supramundane fields, where faith and intuitional God's mercy and justice have their place, our poor judgment is often more likely to be more wrong than right. Right. Let me read that. Judging by the standard of public duty, the conduct of Ramdas was not justified. But in the supramundane fields, where faith and intuitional God's mercy and justice have their place, our poor judgment is more often likely to be more wrong than right. Okay. It may be asked why all these questions of conduct and moral propriety should be raised when the Tanasha himself was not only satisfied with what happened, but praised Gopanna for what he had done. This is no doubt one aspect. It is a consoling thought, but it is by no means an argument in defense of Gopanna. Whatever one's judgment may be, there is no doubt that Gopanna, as Bhakta Ramdas, is adored by So whatever one's judgment may be, there's no doubt that Gopanna, as Bhakta Ramdas, is adored by thousands as a prince among devotees. Now we come to Śrīmad Swāmī Prabhupāda's commentary. In the above statement of the story of Gopanna, many intricate questions have been raised, and we shall try to answer them one by one in accordance with the verdict of the scriptures. No amount of imaginative judgment will help us unless we refer to the matter in terms of Shastras. We will first deal with the point. Let me reread. We'll first deal with the point. What is the real position of a devotee of God in this mundane world? A devotee's position is not relative. Because he is fixed in the service of the Absolute in all his activities, he does not live in the relative world, although apparently he seems to remain among us. Being situated in the Absolute, a devotee is not to be conditioned by the laws of physical world. Iha yasya harer dasye karmana manasa gira nikila swapyavastasu jivan mukta sa uchate. That's Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1-187. This means that a person who is in all respects and in all conditions of life engaged 100% in the service of the Lord is to be considered a liberated soul. A liberated soul cannot be judged by a conditioned soul. Since the position held by Gopanna in his dealings with the state service or in respect to his crossing the threshold of ethical principles as conceived by conditioned souls, or beyond the conception of human power, it is better to conclude or understand the actions of Gopanna in the manner that Mr. Chandrashekhara has done in the following words, namely, our poor judgment is awfully likely to be more wrong than right. Every action of a devotee is considered to be good because it is targeted towards the service of the all good. God is all good. He is absolute knowledge. There is no difference between him, his pure devotee, and all devotional activities. Gopanna was a pure devotee of God, and therefore all his activities were good. That is the verdict of the Shastras. That is the reason that ultimately Gopanna was adored even by Tanasha, although in the eyes of the mundaners, he committed a criminal act of misappropriation of public money. There are many instances where not only the devotee, but also God himself has committed the so-called criminal act of theft for the pleasure of the devotee. Sri Gopinathji at Ramuna, in the district of Baleshwar, Orissa, is still famous as Gopinathji, that is Kir Chora Gopinath, who committed theft for Sri Madhavendra Puri, his pure devotee. The thief Gopinathji is adored by his devotees as much as Ramdas of Bhadrachalam is adored. Therefore, these acts of criminality by God or his devotees, are not the subject matter of material jurisprudence of law. This is confirmed in the Bhagavat by the following shloka. Yasyasti bhaktir bhagavata kinchana sarvar gunaistatra samasate sura harav abhaktasya kuto mahar guna manorathena sati dhavato bahi. That's Śrīmad Bhagavatam 5:18-12. This means that if a person has unflinching faith in and devotion to the personality of Godhead, then all the good qualities of the Suras, the most enlightened living beings, do overtake him. But a non-devotee cannot have any good quality whatsoever because he is sustained in the subtler activities of physical nature, which is always inferior to the spiritual nature. A house made of iron, however decorated with workmanship, is always much more inferior in quality than a grain of gold. Mundane ethical and moral codes, which are manufactured in the laws of physical nature, are certainly always inferior in quality than the spiritual act of theft. Since the spiritual world is absolute, there is no difference between such acts of theft and honesty. Because the spiritual world is absolute. No difference between acts of theft and honesty. Everything coincides in the act of transcendental loving service to Godhead. In the Bhagavad Gita, the difference between the qualities of the spiritual and material nature is defined as follows. Bhumi apo nalo vayu kang mano buddhire vacha ahankara iti angme bhinna prakriti ashtadha. This means that earth, water, fire, air, sky, mind, intelligence, and false ego, all these 8 gross and subtle elements of physical nature, are different separated energies of Godhead. All of them are insentient matter and therefore inferior in quality to the other. Spiritual nature. Okay, so these are all inferior in quality to the other spiritual nature, of which the living entity is an infinitesimal fragment. Being superior in nature, the living entity, although a small particle, can partially lord it over the inferior material nature. Such being the difference between the above two natures, the superior action of the superior nature cannot be judged from the level of the physical nature. God is all spirit, and all the living entities are of a spiritual nature. Both of them are eternally related in the spiritual plane as the eternal servitor and served. Impersonal monists are unable to realize the significance of this eternal spiritual nature. Wow, this is like showing how bhakti is inherent in a way, isn't it? I guess not fully, I guess. Anyways, impersonal monists are unable to realize the significance of this eternal spiritual nature. The reciprocal activities of God and his devotees are all spiritual. The physical nature is controlled by the spiritual nature, and not vice versa. As such, the laws of physical nature stop acting when the spiritual nature begins to work. Tribhir gunamayar bhavar ebhi sarvam idam jagat mohitam na bhijanati mamebhya paramavyayam Daivihyesha gunamayi mamamaya duratyaya mamiva ye prapadyante mayam etang tarantite. Bhagavad Gita 7:13-14. Deluded by the three modes, goodness, passion, and ignorance, the whole world does not know me, who am above the modes and inexhaustible. This divine energy of mine, consisting of the three modes of material nature, is difficult to overcome. But those who have surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond it. Translation, Bhaktivedanta Book Trust International. We added in some translations when it's not explained in the article. You can see it in the square brackets. Everyone is illusioned by the captivating energy of the physical nature, and thus nobody is able to know how the spiritual nature works. It is very difficult to surmount the laws of physical nature, undoubtedly, but for one who puts himself in the actions of spiritual nature, the physical nature stops acting upon him. So the devotee doesn't undergo karma anymore. All his reactions are coming straight from the Lord. Anything that he undergoes in this world is coming directly from the Lord. Gopanna was a self-surrendered soul, and thus he was above the laws of the physical world. He couldn't be affected by karma. The diversion of not giving money to the state funds was never an unlawful act for Gopanna, although for others it was certainly unlawful. When, in his previous birth, Gopanna was an ordinary person, he was certainly bound by the finer laws of the physical world. As such, he was incarcerated, not for his act of so-called misappropriation, but actually, he was lightly punished for his sinful acts in his past life, which was mentioned in the complete story. So he still had some aprarabdha karma. What is it? He was going his prarabdha karma, I mean. Ordinary persons who are not in the service of God may take note of how much suffering is awaiting. Those people who are not in the service of God may take note of how much suffering is awaiting them in their future births for all their known and unknown sinful actions. When an action is performed, the seed is sown, and in due course, the result of the action will mature to result in accordance with the law of karma. Nobody is free from the stringent laws of karma, as stated in the Brahma Samhita. Yastvindra gopa matavindra mahosva karma bandhanurupa phala bhajana matanoti karmani nirdahati kintu cha bhakti bhajam govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. That's Brahma Samhita 554. This means that beginning from the great King Indra of heaven down to the ant named Indragopa, all are bound up by the laws of physical nature and are subjected to the reaction of one's own actions. But Govinda, the personality of Godhead, relieves his devotees from the actions of the law of karma. The actions of a devotee do not accrue future reactions. Gopanna was therefore not punished for his so-called action of misappropriation, but he was lightly punished for his past actions. And that too was in order to raise him to the estimation of all other men. Oh, that was to raise him to the estimation of all other men. So that was to bring out his glories, right? Otherwise, this pastime wouldn't have taken place of Ramachandra and Lakshman appearing in the dream and all that, right? Na jayate mriyate va kadachin nayam bhutva bhavita va na bhuya ajo nitya shashvato yang purano na hanyate hanyamane sharire. That's Bhagavad Gita 2:20. Vasangshijirnani yata vihaya navani grinanti naroparani tata sharirani vihaya jirnani anyani sangyakti navani dehi. This means that the living being is eternal. He changes his body as a man changes his shirts and coats. His gross body, made of earth, fire, air, and sky, constitutes his outward coat, and his mind, intelligence, and false ego constitute his internal body, likened to the shirt. The living entity changes his gross body when he is said to have died, but the subtle body, which is compared with the shirt, is carried with him, in order to avail a suitable gross body in the womb of the 84 lakh species of life, according to his state of mind at the time of his death. The seed of action is sure to fructify in due course. The result of all actions passes through different stages of development. Such stages of development are known as the stage of kutastha, nascent, I think. I don't know how you say this word. Nascent. It means just coming into existence and beginning. Okay? Just coming into existence. Aparabdha, accruing. Prarabdha, mature, etc. It is not necessary that the result of one action is reached, in other words, takes place in one's very same body. Wait. It's not necessary that the result of one action is reached in one's very same body. It takes a long time for the real results to fructify. Just by sowing a seed of a tree, we cannot immediately get a full-grown tree and the fruits thereof. Similarly, the result of a karma or action is exhibited in due course of time. Gopanna's punishment was due to his past deed of encaging a parrot. His act of performing unalloyed service to the personality of Godhead Ram was properly recognized by Ram, who would not have come otherwise to support an ordinary culprit who had misappropriated public money. That is not God's business. He is neutral in all matters, and nobody is his enemy or friend. Only those who love him and therefore worship him spontaneously are his actual friends. That is the verdict of Bhagavad Gita. Śrī Ramacandra approached Tanasha to release a devotee and not a culprit. He's releasing a devotee, not a culprit. God has nothing to do with the actions of an ordinary man. An ordinary man is responsible for his own action, but in the case of a devotee, the whole thing has to be viewed from a different angle of vision. Yagyartat karmanonyatra lokoyam karma bandhana tarartam karma konteya mukta sangha samachara. That's Bhagavad Gita 3:9. Yagya means Vishnu. Anything done for and on behalf of Vishnu, the Supreme Being, is free from the law of karma and therefore not bound by the laws of physical nature. In this shloka of Bhagavad Gita, Konteya, the son of Kunti, is advised to do everything for him, the personality of Godhead, which will make him absolutely free from physical infection. Perfection in human life is standardized in the intensified loving service of God. That is the natural function of all living beings. Intensified service of God. That's the natural function of all living beings. The highest form of intensified love for God was experienced by the damsels of Vraj in their quest for the amorous love of God, Sri Krishna. In that way of intense love for Sri Krishna, they appear to have established moral codes of family life, but they are held still in the highest estimation by all pure devotees. Like Sanaka Sanatana Varnita Charite, right? Prahlad Maharaj caused to kill, he caused the death of his own father, which is certainly improper in the eyes of the mundaners. But yet, Prahlad Maharaj is counted as one of the 12 authorities in the science of devotion. So also Bali Maharaj. Bali Maharaj, he cut off his connection to his spiritual master, Shukracharya, because the latter checked him in the service of God. To disconnect one's relation with the spiritual master is an act of sin in the eyes of the mundaner. But Bali Maharaj is also one of the authorities. There are innumerable examples of the personality of Godhead having such dealings with his devotees. And those incidents instruct us that everything done by a pure devotee for the satisfaction of Godhead is an act of devotional service that is properly recognized by the personality of Godhead. The impersonalists, hovering in the speculative plane of the mind, cannot understand all this. And as they do not believe in the person of Godhead, they cannot conceive of his absolute power. Even a neophyte devotee who may be used to previously performing so many nefarious acts by long practice, they became habits, is also esteemed as a sadhu in the language of the Bhagavad Gita. The only qualification of a pure devotee is that he serves God for his satisfaction, for God's satisfaction. This is called spontaneous love of Godhead. Such a devotee also cannot prolong his bad habits for a long period. Simultaneously with the beginning of his unalloyed service, liquidation of his bad habits also begins, and very soon all the qualities of the gods overtake him. Yat koroshi yarashnasi yajuhoshi dadasi yat tapasyasi konteya tatkurushva mararpanam shubha shubha phalar evam moksha se karma bandhanai Sannyasa yoga yuktatma yam upaishyasi samoham sarvabhuteshu name dveshyosti na priya ye bhajanti tumam bhaktya mayite teshu chapyaham apichetsu daracharo bhajate mam ananya bhak sadureva samantavya samyak vyavasito hisa kshipram bhavati dharmatma shashvat chantim Kaunteya pratijanihi name bhakta pranashyati. That's Bhagavad Gita 9:27-31. We're almost at the end now. Whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you offer or give away, and whatever austerities you perform, do that, O son of Kunti, as an offering to me. In this way, you will be freed from bondage to work and its auspicious and inauspicious results. With your mind fixed on me in this principle of renunciation, you will be liberated and come to me. I envy no one, nor am I partial to anyone. I am equal to all. But whoever renders service unto devotion is a friend, is in me, and I am also a friend to him. Even if one commits the most abominable action, if he is engaged in devotional service, he is to be considered saintly because he is properly situated in his determination. He quickly becomes righteous and attains lasting peace. O son of Kunti, declare it boldly that my devotee never perishes. That's a translation from Bhaktivedanta Book Trust International. Okay, this is the last paragraph. A pure devotee is therefore not bound up by any law of the physical world. He is completely free to serve the personality of Godhead without any care for man-made moral principles. But a devotee never violates any moral codes for his own self-gratification. In rare cases only, He does so for the service of Godhead, and in doing so, he is not at all bound by man-made laws. Gopanna's intensive love for God and God's reciprocation and recognition of his service is confirmed in the following way. Ye yata mang prapadyante tangs tataiva bhajamyaham. It's Bhagavad Gita 4:11. As all surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly. It's from the Bhaktivedanta Book Trust International. Published in Śrī Sajjana-toṣaṇi Patrikā, and the editor-chief of that magazine is Sri Bhakti Saranga Gosvāmī Mahārāja. This is volume 1 of that Sajjana-toṣaṇi Patrikā, September 1955. This is presented by the Rays of the Harmonist team, Gaudiya Vedanta Publications. All right, so whoever is watching right now is some of the first people to have seen this in 67 years. Pretty cool, huh? All right, thank you so much for joining me in this. Now I have to work on preparing it for purebhakti.com, and also I'll post it on Facebook. Thank you so much for joining me in this very interesting reading, wasn't it? If you're curious to know more about Gopanna, also you can search him on Wikipedia. I found some neat things about him there. So, all right. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Oh Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva, Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva. Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Gaur Hari Bol. Jai Shri Sachinandan Gaur Hari ki Jai, Shri Radha Vinod Bihari Ju ki Jai, Shri Radha Damodar Ju ki Jai, Srila Gurudev ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai, Srila Param Gurudev ki Jai, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada Parashara Vrinda ki Jai, Saparshadji Gaur, Shri Rupanuga Gauriya Guru Varga ki Jai, Saparshadji Gaur Nityananda Prabhu ki Jai, Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopigan ki Jai, Shri Giriraj Maharaj ki Jai, Shri Radha Kund Shamakun ki Jai, Shri Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Tirobhav Titi ki Jai, Titi Palan Kari Bhakta Vrinda ki Jai, Shri Gopanna ki Jai, what is it? Bhakta Ramdas ki Jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki Jai, Shri Kartik Vrat Niyam Seva ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki Jai, Samagata Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki Jai, Shinitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bo Vrindai Tulsidevai Priyai Keshavashacha Krishna Bhakti Pradadevi Satyavataya Namo Namaha Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. I was actually supposed to send this out like last night, or early this morning. But what happened was I was so Vaijanti Mala Mataji, she went over this article, and Dandavat Pranams Gaur Bhaktivinoda Prabhu and Shasharmaji, Hare Krishna. So yeah, Vaijanti Mala Mataji, she went over this article. First, the devotee in Hindi publications found it, and then I scanned it, I did an OCR thing to it, and then I sent it to Vaijantimala, and she went through it and fixed it up because it was in a really bad condition. So she spent many hours fixing it up and lightly editing it. And then she sent it to me, and I was supposed to go over some things, and there's some questions in there and just some things like I was supposed to go over it and do a proofread and all that. And it just slipped my mind because I was busy when she sent it. And so I said I'd get to it in a couple of days, and then it just slipped my mind. And then when I woke up this morning, the first thing that came into my head was Gopanna. And so now all day, Vaijantimala and the Odin Hindi publications, I'm not sure if he wants me to mention his name, we've been working on it all day today, and just now we got it ready to send out. So now I need to get ready for Pure Bhakti. And but yeah, this is a new discovery. All right. Thank you so much for joining me in this reading, and I'll see you all tomorrow. Jai Shri Radhe. Maybe we could read a little bit more about Śrīla Prabhupāda tomorrow also, because I didn't get a chance to read about him today. So yeah, if you want to get this article, you can check to Pure Bhakti maybe tomorrow morning. I'm going to prepare it now, but yeah, let's see. I'll also post it on Facebook. All right, Hari Bol. Dandavat Pranamas.